I moved. Seiichirou Kondou was not exactly not angry. After all, whether it was another world or whatever, the fact remained that he had been abducted by force to serve another country. On top of that, the target had been a minor girl, and although he had merely been dragged along, he believed that the proper course of action would be for whoever was responsible to come and bow in apology first. However, the one present here, if his own words were to be believed, was a minister. Not a king, nor a chancellor, just a minister. Yet Seiichirou prioritized efficiency above all else. What people commonly called an efficiency fanatic. Ever since graduating from university, no, even before that, he had valued reaching results by the shortest possible path rather than being guided by emotion. Therefore, instead of engaging in pointless arguments with the ministers, when asked what he wanted, his ingrained corporate wage-slave mentality made him answer, a job. Meanwhile, the minister's side was also troubled. They had successfully used a secret art to summon the saintess from another world, but an unnecessary extra had come along with her. And the first prince, who had been directing the operation, had quickly taken only the saintess and left this worn-out adult man behind. Those who remained tried to pass the responsibility to one another, but the commander of the First Night Order and His Excellency the Chancellor merely glared at them, and the commander of the Third Night Order pretended not to know anything at all. As a Viscount, Adalbrecht found himself often drawing the short straw, and he swallowed back a sigh. The man standing before him, wearing silver-rimmed glasses and strange grey clothing, was unlike the saintess girl. He was thin, had heavy dark circles under his eyes, and his complexion was poor. When asked what his relationship to the saintess was, he replied that they were complete strangers. The degree of this man's misfortune seemed considerable, and a faint sense of kinship stirred within him. However, leaving this man unattended would be problematic. Even if it was unavoidable, they had summoned someone unrelated. Depending on the man's words and actions, it could lead to criticism of the royal palace from the citizens. And above all, even if they were strangers, he was from the same homeland as the saintess. It could damage the saintess's mood. There had already been instructions from the chancellor beforehand. Spare no expense in providing him with food, clothing, and shelter, and if possible, keep him under controlled maintenance. To gain the trust of this man from another world, they had even said that they would grant some of his requests. The Viscounts had assumed it would be money, women, or a house, but the man answered with eyes like a dead fish. Please give me a job. And so, the scene of apologizing to a kidnapping victim quickly turned into a job interview. A job, you say? What can you do? You almost called me you bastard, didn't you? He felt slightly irritated, but since the other man was a noble, he endured it and thought. If this were modern Japan, he would list qualifications like Icon Grade 2, MOS, or Abacus certification ranks, but of course, those would not be understood here. Seiichirou was an assistant manager in the accounting department, and what he excelled at was abacus calculation from long ago, but he knew nothing of this world's common sense. He wasn't even sure whether their numbers were the same. No, mathematics was a concept. As long as he learned the rules, what needed to be done should not change, he reconsidered. I am good at calculations and accounting work. Thus, Seiichirou was assigned to the Royal Palace Accounting Department. He was left waiting in the reception room, and the man introduced to him was a gentle-looking middle-aged man with streaks of white in his hair. I am Helmut Somalia, in charge of the Royal Palace Accounting Department. I am Seiichirou Kondou. Pleased to meet you. Kondou. Since this world seemed European in style, the surname likely came first. His surname seemed difficult to pronounce. The ministers, who had not even bothered to ask his name until now, muttered awkwardly. Kondou is the family name, Seiichirou is the given name. Please call me whichever you prefer. Kondou, Kon. I see. Then, Kondou. Seiichirou, not childish enough to insist on how he was addressed, nodded without correcting Helmut's pronunciation. After that, escorted out by ministers who looked eager to be rid of him, Seiichirou followed Helmut outside the palace. Naturally, he would not be working from the very first day of his abduction, summoning, so Helmut would guide him to the room prepared for him. This has been quite a misfortune for you. If they hadn't summoned, kidnapped, him in the first place, none of this would have happened, but he merely gave a troubled smile. I heard you are good at calculations, Kondou. Ah, well, in my original world. I'm not yet sure if that will apply here. Helmut nodded with a smile at his honest reply. I see. No need to worry. Though Seiichirou tilted his head, wondering why this man was smiling despite being forced to take in a likely useless foreigner, he asked Helmut if he could see books related to mathematics, or rather, arithmetic, in this world. Helmut nodded and promised to bring them to his room later. After leaving the palace and walking for several minutes, they arrived at a large brick building. It resembled a European apartment. It seemed to be a dormitory, rather, company housing, where many civil officials working at the palace lived. Helmut had a wife and children and owned a house in the castle town, but most unmarried civil officials lived here. The knights had separate barracks. The room included a kitchen and toilet, and only the bath was a shared large bathhouse. He could cook for himself or eat in the cafeteria. Seiichirou would be granted residence here, with food and miscellaneous expenses covered. Upon entering the main entrance, there was a spacious lobby, and an elderly man appeared from a windowed reception-like room. "Ah, I've heard about you. I'll show you to your room." The small man introduced himself as Jushan, the manager of the lodging. "I'm Seiichirou Kondou. I appreciate your care." "Kondou. That's fine." The room Jushan showed him was about 12 tatami mats in size, with bedding already prepared on the bed. The wooden floors did not creak, and there was no dust, mold, or unpleasant smell. It was cleaner and more spacious than he had expected, and he felt relieved. Having grown used to modern Japan's cleanliness, he had been somewhat worried. He was told to rest until someone came to call him for dinner, so once alone, he gratefully sat on the bed. Feeling the softness of the cotton mattress, he realized again that the treatment was unexpectedly good. He had impulsively said, "Give me a job," but he felt uneasy about whether he could truly manage. Still, 7 years as a corporate wage slave drove him onward, work. That's right, and that girl. Though they were merely strangers who had crossed paths and she had asked him for help, she was a minor girl from the same homeland. He could not just leave her alone. They had said something about having her purify miasma as a saintess, but was that truly possible? Was it not dangerous? He had to confirm. After all, she was a minor, likely a girl who had never worked. She had been abducted from the start with the intention of being used, so he had to ensure she was not treated cruelly. Once things settled down, "I wonder if they'll let me see her." It felt unlikely somehow, but he too had been abducted from another world. He would try to negotiate at least that much flexibility. Even so, first he had to secure his own footing. Exhausted from lack of sleep and from the tension of everything that had happened, Seiichirou began to doze on the bed. Bang, bang, bang. Heh. Just as he thought that, loud knocking startled him awake. Looking around and seeing that the sun was still up outside the window, he felt relieved that he had not slept long. But the noise at the door did not stop. "Hey! You awake in there?" A man's voice was added, and it was no longer something he could ignore. Seiichirou reluctantly stood. "What is it?" He opened the door slightly and peered out, only for the noisy man on the other side to shove his face close. Startled and stepping back, he lost the chance to stop him. The door was flung open and the man entered. "Hey! I'm Norbert Baranek. Helmut told me to bring you books and clothes." Looking again at the overly cheerful man, he was holding 3 paperback-sized books in one hand and a bag of clothing. "Ah, thank you." So he was sent by Helmut. Which meant, "You're joining the Royal Accounting Department, right? I'm in accounting too. Nice to meet you." With casually styled golden hair and clothes in white and blue worn loosely, the man looked down at Seiichirou with straightforward blue eyes that showed no shyness. "Kondou. Seiichirou. Nice to meet you." "Kondou." Since repeating this exchange every time would be a hassle, Seiichirou wondered if he should just introduce himself as Kondou from the start, but the man before him, Norbert, grinned widely. "Sei-san, right? Nice to meet you." So even in another world, there are flashy playboys. He recalled last year's new recruit at his company back in faraway Japan, and forced a strained smile.